I remember the day TechFront collapsed as if it were yesterday. Sitting in my office, staring at the computer screen, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. Years of sleepless nights, endless meetings, and countless sacrifices had culminated in this moment of utter failure. Our financials were a mess. Investors were pulling out one by one, leaving us in a pit of debt. I had made a bad call on a crucial market decision, and now everything was crumbling. "Tom, we need to talk," Emily said softly, entering my office. She had that look of concern that I'd grown so accustomed to lately. Emily had always been my rock, my constant source of support. But even she seemed unsure of how to help me this time. "I don't know what to do, Emily," I confessed, my voice cracking. "I feel like I've let everyone down. The team, our investors, you." "Hey," she interrupted, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. "We'll figure something out. You've always found a way before." "But this time, it feels different," I replied, shaking my head. "The debts are too high and the market has turned against us. I don't see a way out." Just then, Mike Reynolds, my best friend and our chief developer, burst into the room. His usually confident demeanor was replaced by a look of desperation. "Tom, I've been going through the numbers all night," he said, his voice tinged with anxiety. "We need a miracle to pull through this." "A miracle," I repeated, nearly laughing at the absurdity of it. "Do you happen to have one up your sleeve, Mike?" "I wish," he sighed, sinking into the chair across from my desk. "But we can't give up now. We've come too far." As we sat there, the three of us enveloped in a cloud of despair, my phone rang. I barely had the energy to reach for it, but something compelled me to answer. "Hello?" I said, trying to mask the exhaustion in my voice. "Good evening, Mr. Walker," a deep, enigmatic voice responded. "I understand you're facing some difficulties with TechFront." "Who is this?" I asked, immediately suspicious. "Let's just say I'm someone who believes in your vision and wants to help," the voice continued. "You can call me Mr. X." "Mr. X?" Emily mouthed, raising an eyebrow. "And how exactly do you plan to help?" I demanded, my skepticism growing. "I've been following your work for a while, Tom. I see the potential in TechFront, and I believe it can be saved. I'm willing to invest a substantial amount of money to get you back on track." "Why should I trust you?" I asked, still wary. The offer seemed too good to be true. "You have nothing to lose at this point, do you?" Mr. X replied calmly. "Think of it as a lifeline. We can discuss the details when you're ready." I glanced at Emily and Mike, both of whom looked as bewildered as I felt. Could this mysterious caller really be the miracle we needed? "All right," I said cautiously. "Let's talk." The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions and decisions. Mr. X's investment did indeed provide the financial relief we so desperately needed. But even as we started to stabilize, the mystery of his identity gnawed at me. Who was this person who had swooped in to save us at our darkest hour? And what were his true intentions? "Tom, you need to be careful," Emily warned one evening as we sat in our living room, the remnants of dinner scattered on the coffee table. "This whole situation feels off." "I know, Em," I admitted, running a hand through my hair. "But what choice do we have? Without Mr. X, TechFront is finished." "We'll figure it out together," Mike added, his voice filled with determination. "Just like we always do." And so, with a mix of hope and trepidation, we embarked on this new chapter, knowing that the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but also clinging to the belief that we could overcome them. Little did we know that this was just the beginning of a series of events that would test our resolve, our relationships, and our very understanding of trust and betrayal. After the devastating collapse of TechFront, I found myself in a state of despair that I had never experienced before. The startup that I'd poured my heart and soul into was crumbling before my eyes, and it seemed like there was no way out. Emily, my wife, was my rock during this time. She constantly reassured me, saying, "Tom, we'll get through this." I believe in you and in TechFront. We just need to find a way. Mike, my best friend and chief developer, was equally relentless in his support. He spent countless nights brainstorming potential solutions, but nothing seemed to stick. I remember one evening, after yet another failed investor meeting, Mike looked at me with a weary but determined expression. "Tom, we can't give up. There has to be someone out there who sees the potential in what we've built." It was during this dark period that I received the call that would change everything. My phone rang late one night, the caller ID displaying unknown. Hesitantly, I answered. "Is this Tom Walker?" A deep, confident voice inquired. "Yes, who's this?" I replied, my curiosity piqued. "You can call me Mr. X. I've been following TechFront's journey, and I believe it has immense potential. I want to help you turn things around," the voice explained. I was taken aback. "Why would you want to help us? And how do I know this isn't some kind of scam?" Mr. X chuckled softly. "I understand your skepticism, Tom. Let's just say I have a vested interest in seeing TechFront succeed. I'm prepared to inject significant capital into your company and offer strategic advice. All I ask in return is discretion regarding my identity." It seemed too good to be true, but with our backs against the wall, I felt I had no choice. "All right, Mr. X, let's give it a shot," I agreed cautiously. True to his word, Mr. X transferred a substantial amount of funds into TechFront's accounts within days. With this newfound financial backing, we were able to pay off critical debts, rehire key staff, and invest in innovative projects. The fresh infusion of capital brought new life into the company, and the turnaround was almost immediate. During one of our late-night discussions, I shared my concerns with Emily. "I can't shake the feeling that there's more to Mr. X than he's letting on. Why would someone invest so much without revealing their identity?" Emily nodded thoughtfully. "I understand your worry, Tom, but for now, let's focus on rebuilding TechFront. We can dig deeper into Mr. X's motives once we're back on solid ground." Mike, ever the pragmatist, echoed her sentiments. "Tom, this might be our only shot. If Mr. X has a hidden agenda, we'll deal with it when the time comes. Right now, we need to leverage this opportunity to its fullest." Over the next few months, we worked tirelessly to implement Mr. X's strategies. His ideas were nothing short of revolutionary, and they quickly positioned TechFront as a rising star in the tech industry. Our innovations were being noticed, and for the first time in a long while, it felt like we were on the cusp of something monumental. Still, the enigma of Mr. X nagged at me. Who was this mysterious benefactor? What did he stand to gain from this? One evening, after another successful product launch, I decided to confront Mr. X directly. "Mr. X," I began during our next call, "I need to know who you are. You've done so much for us, but I can't shake the feeling that there's something you're not telling me." There was a long pause on the other end before he finally spoke. "Tom, all in due time. For now, trust that my intentions are aligned with your success. Focus on growing TechFront. The answers will come when the time is right." Despite my reservations, I had little choice but to accept his cryptic response. As TechFront continued its meteoric rise, the mystery of Mr. X remained an ever-present shadow. But with each passing day, I grew more determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. As TechFront began to carve out a name for itself in the tech industry, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was amiss. The enigmatic Mr. X, who had seemingly swooped in to save us from the brink of collapse, started showing colors that suggested more sinister intentions. It began with subtle signs, odd suggestions, peculiar coincidences, and strategic decisions that, upon closer inspection, seemed to benefit someone other than TechFront. One evening, as I sat in my office poring over financial reports, Emily walked in. She placed a hand on my shoulder, sensing my unease. "Tom, you've been working non-stop. What's bothering you?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. "It's just, I can't shake this feeling that Mr. X isn't who he says he is." There are too many coincidences, too many things that don't add up, I admitted, running a hand through my hair in frustration. Emily sat down across from me, her eyes searching mine for answers. What do you mean? Look at this, I said, pointing to a series of transactions on my screen. These investments and withdrawals, they're perfectly timed to manipulate our stock prices. And these strategic decisions that seemed so beneficial at first glance, they're leading us down a path that makes us vulnerable. Emily's brow furrowed as she leaned in to examine the data. Have you talked to Mike about this? Not yet. I didn't want to raise any alarms until I had something concrete, I replied. But I couldn't wait any longer. The next day, I called Mike into my office, closing the door behind him. Mike, we need to talk, I said, my tone serious. What's going on, Tom? Mike asked, sensing the gravity of the situation. I've been going through our financials and strategic decisions, and something doesn't add up. I think Mr. X is manipulating us for his own gain, I explained, laying out the evidence in front of him. Mike studied the data, his expression growing more serious by the minute. This is bad, Tom. If you're right, we're in deep trouble. I know, and that's why we need to find out who Mr. X really is, I said, determination in my voice. Over the next few weeks, Mike and I worked tirelessly, digging into every lead, every connection, and every piece of information we could find. Emily supported us, managing the day-to-day operations of TechFront, while we delved deeper into the mystery. One night, as I was going through some old emails from my college days, I stumbled upon a name that sent chills down my spine, Richard Harris. He was an old rival from my university days, a brilliant but ruthless individual who had always harbored a grudge against me. Mike, come here, I called out, my voice trembling with a mix of excitement and dread. I think I've found something. Mike rushed over, peering at the screen. Richard Harris? You think he's Mr. X? It makes sense, I said, my mind racing. Richard always had a vendetta against me. He would have the resources and the motive to pull this off. The realization hit us like a ton of bricks. Richard had orchestrated this entire scheme, posing as Mr. X to gain our trust, only to lead us into a trap. But what was his endgame? We needed concrete proof. Emily suggested we hire a private investigator to dig deeper into Richard's activities. Weeks later, we received a report that confirmed our worst fears. Richard had been manipulating the market and our company from the shadows, setting us up for a massive fall. With this new information, we knew we had to act fast. Richard's endgame was clear. He wanted to destroy TechFront and ruin me in the process, but I wasn't going to let him win. Emily, Mike, we need to expose Richard, I said, determination in my eyes. We need to gather more evidence and prepare for a confrontation. Emily nodded, her resolve unwavering. We'll do whatever it takes, Tom. We're in this together. Mike agreed, his loyalty to the company and our friendship stronger than ever. Let's bring him down. The three of us worked tirelessly, gathering all the evidence we could find. The tension was palpable, but so was our determination. Richard had underestimated us, and we were about to turn the tables. As TechFront continued to rise, so did the shadows cast by Richard's manipulations. But we were ready to face whatever came our way, united in our mission to protect the company we had built from the ground up. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as I dialed Richard Harris's number. The pieces had finally come together, and the realization that Mr. X was none other than my old college rival was both infuriating and heartbreaking. I needed answers, and I needed them now. Hello, Richard. It's Tom Walker, I began, trying to keep my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. Tom, what a surprise, Richard replied, his tone dripping with feigned enthusiasm. To what do I owe this pleasure? We need to talk, in person, I insisted, not wanting to give anything away over the phone. There's a lot we need to discuss about TechFront. There was a brief pause on the other end before Richard agreed. All right, Tom, let's meet at the usual spot. The usual spot was a small cafe near our old college, a place that held memories of both friendship and rivalry. As I arrived, I saw Richard already seated, a smug smile on his face. I I took a deep breath and approached him. "Richard," I greeted curtly, sitting down across from him. "Tom, you seem tense. What's going on?" he asked, feigning concern. I didn't waste any time. "I know you're Mr. X. I know you've been manipulating everything from behind the scenes. What I don't understand is why." Richard's smile faded, replaced by a cold, calculating expression. "Ah, you finally figured it out. Took you long enough." "Why, Richard? Why go through all this trouble?" I demanded, my voice rising with each word. Richard leaned back in his chair, his eyes gleaming with a mix of satisfaction and malice. "You see, Tom, ever since college, I always felt overshadowed by you. No matter what I did, you were always one step ahead. When I heard about TechFront's struggles, I saw an opportunity to finally put you in your place." I clenched my fists under the table, struggling to keep my composure. "So this was all about some petty rivalry? You intentionally let me think you were helping us, just to tear everything down again?" Richard laughed, a sound that sent chills down my spine. "Precisely. I wanted you to know what it's like to feel helpless, to watch everything you've built come crashing down. And I have to say, it's been quite entertaining. At that moment, I felt a surge of anger and determination. I would not let Richard win. You won't get away with this, Richard. Emily, Mike, and I, we're going to expose you for the fraud you are." Richard's smile faltered for the first time. "And how do you plan to do that? You have no proof." I stood up, my resolve unwavering. "We'll find it. And when we do, you won't just lose TechFront. You'll lose everything." Leaving the cafe, I called Emily and Mike, relaying everything Richard had confessed. They were equally shocked and outraged, but there was no time to dwell on emotions. We had to act fast. "We need to gather as much evidence as possible," Emily said, her voice filled with determination. "Emails, financial records, anything that ties Richard to Mr. X." Mike nodded in agreement. "I'll start going through the server logs. There must be traces of his manipulations." Days turned into weeks as we worked tirelessly, piecing together the evidence we needed. Every late night and early morning was fueled by the desire to see justice served. Emily's background in law proved invaluable as she guided us on how to document everything meticulously. One evening, as we were sifting through emails, Mike's eyes lit up. "Guys, I think I've found something. Look at this email chain. It shows a direct link between Richard and the offshore accounts used to fund Mr. X's investments." Emily scrutinized the documents. "This is it. This is the proof we need." With our evidence in hand, we planned our next move. The upcoming tech conference would be the perfect stage to expose Richard. We prepared a presentation that would lay out all the facts, leaving no room for doubt. The day of the conference arrived. As I stood on stage looking out at the sea of faces, I felt a mix of nerves and determination. Emily and Mike stood by my side, their presence giving me strength. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, "today I stand before you not just as the CEO of TechFront, but as someone who has been deceived and betrayed. We have uncovered a sinister plot orchestrated by someone we thought was a friend." As the presentation unfolded, the evidence spoke for itself. Gasps and murmurs filled the room as Richard's deceit was laid bare. When it was over, there was no doubt left about who Mr. X truly was. Richard, who was present in the audience, tried to leave, but security was already on him. As he was escorted out, I felt a sense of justice and relief wash over me. TechFront was saved, and Richard's reign of manipulation was over. But more importantly, I learned that with the right people by your side, even the darkest of betrayals can be overcome. As we celebrated our victory, I realized that this journey had strengthened not just the company, but our bonds as friends and partners. And in the end, that was the most valuable outcome of all. As the day of the big tech conference approached, the tension in our team was palpable. We'd spent countless sleepless nights preparing our presentation and gathering irrefutable evidence against Richard Harris. Emily, Mike, and I had rehearsed our speeches, cross-checked our documents, and prepared for every possible counter-argument. The stakes couldn't be higher. This was our last chance to expose Richard and save TechFront. "Are you ready, Tom?" Emily asked, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder as we stood backstage. Her eyes, full of determination and love, were all the encouragement I needed. "Ready as I'll ever be," I replied, trying to muster a confident smile. Mike nodded in agreement, his fingers dancing nervously over his tablet. As we walked onto the stage, the auditorium was packed with industry leaders, media, and tech enthusiasts. The spotlight was blinding, but I welcomed it. This was our moment. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began. "Today we are here not only to discuss the future of technology, but to reveal a truth that has been hidden for too long." I could see Richard in the audience, his confident smirk making my blood boil. He had no idea what was coming. "TechFront has faced numerous challenges," Emily continued, "but none as insidious as the betrayal from within. We have uncovered evidence that one of our own, Richard Harris, has been manipulating our company for his personal vendetta." The room buzzed with whispers and gasps. Richard's face turned ashen. Mike took the stage, displaying a series of emails and financial documents on the large screen. These documents prove that Richard Harris, under the guise of Mr. X, orchestrated a scheme to control and eventually dismantle TechFront. His actions are not only unethical, but illegal. Richard stood up, his voice trembling with anger and fear. "This is preposterous. You have no proof." "Oh, but we do," I said, my voice steady. "And here's where it gets interesting. We have a witness." The doors at the back of the auditorium opened, and in walked John Mitchell, one of our original investors. The audience murmured in surprise. "John," Richard stammered, visibly shaken. "What are you doing here?" John took the stage, his presence commanding respect. "I'm here to set the record straight. I never abandoned TechFront. In fact, I've been working in the shadows to protect it. Richard, your game ends here." He handed over a USB drive to the tech team, who quickly loaded it onto the screen. The content was damning. Recorded phone calls, incriminating messages, and financial transactions that linked Richard directly to the fraudulent activities. The room exploded in chaos. Reporters scrambled to capture the moment, and security moved in to detain Richard. His face was a mask of defeat as he was led away in handcuffs. As the dust settled, John turned to me with a warm smile. "I told you, Tom, you were never alone." The realization hit me like a wave. John had been our silent guardian, the true hero behind our survival. Emily, Mike, and I embraced, tears of relief and joy streaming down our faces. In the days that followed, TechFront's reputation soared. We were hailed as industry leaders and innovators. The public revelation of Richard's deceit only strengthened our resolve and united our team. At a celebratory dinner, Emily raised her glass. "To TechFront," she toasted, "and to the friendships and trust that got us here." "To never giving up," Mike added, clinking his glass with ours. "And to the future," I said, feeling a renewed sense of hope and purpose. May we continue to innovate and inspire. As we celebrated, I couldn't help but reflect on our journey. The betrayals, the challenges, and the ultimate victory had forged us into a stronger, more resilient team. TechFront was more than just a company. It was a testament to the power of trust, perseverance, and the unwavering belief in each other. And so, we stepped into the future, ready to conquer new horizons, knowing that together, we could overcome anything.